Okay, here's a quick review of George Washington's presidency in Chapter 7 for my U.S. history students, and anyone else that's want a quick review will not be in great detail, but it will give you the basics. George Washington as a president, he set a lot of precedents, or he did things for the first time that no one had ever done before, and he really set up the presidency and what a president would be in the United States. It was great service for him to do this. He didn't really want to be president, but he stepped up and did it for his nation one more time. Even as he was at the end of his career. So he's a great service and a great American by doing this. His accomplishments, many of them came from foreign policy. He was a very successful president, in my opinion, one of our best. He made some peace with Britain with Jay's Treaty. He reopened the Mississippi River with Pinckney's Treaty with Spain. He did the Neutrality Proclamation, which will stand the test of time as being our main guide, one of our main guides for foreign policy with Europe, saying we would stay out of European wars, and we will basically do that for over 100 years after his presidency. And probably the greatest thing he did was he resigned as president because he didn't want to make the country about him. He wanted to make it about our democracy, our nation, and our freedom. And he also wisely warned our nation about forming political factions or political parties that would divide the country, which, of course, as you know, has been a big issue in the United States going forward, and it is one today as well, as it seems that there's little to no negotiation or kindness or peace between our major political parties, Democrats and Republicans today. His presidency was often shaped by the disagreements between his staff members, two great and wise men that had very different views for the United States, Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson. They disagreed in interpretation of the Constitution. Hamilton wanting loose construction or flexibility to stretch the Constitution to meet the people's needs and the nation's needs. Jefferson wanting strict construction, following the Constitution word for word to limit the power of the government and protect the freedom of the people. Alexander Hamilton wanted to use loose construction to create a national bank. Jefferson was against that. They had different support in terms of foreign policy. Jefferson wanted to support France because they had supported us and support them through the French Revolution and the democratic ideas that were trying to grow there. Hamilton thought the French Revolution was chaos. He didn't have any loyalty to France. He thought we should be closer to Britain because they were powerful and strong and had a similar history, obviously, to us. They had different vision for the nation. Hamilton wanted a rich, powerful, urban society based on industrialism and with a strong government led by the elites of society. Jefferson wanted freedom, agriculture, simplicity, and the everyday person to have a power in a true democracy. So lots of differences there. Alexander Hamilton's greatest success as Secretary of Treasury, or one of his greatest success, was the creation of the National Bank. Jefferson was against it, but he was able to get it pushed through. It helped stabilize our economy. It helped us mint and coin money, so we have currency for people to trade. It helped pay off our debts and organize our debt payments. It helped hold the tax money. It helped them loan money. It helped pay our bills. It helped give the country, the government, a chance to control the economy and prevent depressions and recessions from happening. And it proved to be a great success, even though it was very controversial at the time. Whiskey Rebellion was out of an unintended consequence from a sin tax on whiskey. People were drinking too much whiskey, and the government needed money, so they said, let's put a tax on whiskey to raise money and to limit the drinking of it. The unintended consequence of it was that the farmers who were growing the corn for the whiskey and making the whiskey lost a lot of money and lost the way to make their livelihood. As a result, they rebelled in Pennsylvania. George Washington made a strong move to restore order, though, as he himself and his army went to Pennsylvania and squashed the rebellion without a fight. This showed that even though we have disagreements in America and sometimes mistakes can be made, we are going to have law and order, and Washington was able to keep the law and order going in that situation. One of the major events that happened is there was a compromise made to move the capital of the United States from New York City, which was far in the north, to a new city that would be built, which will become Washington, D.C. This capital would be, roughly more in the center of the country at the time, between the north and the south, and it gave the Southerners greater access to the capital and greater influence there, and made them feel more a part of the country, at least temporarily. In return, the southern states agreed to help pay off war debts that the northern states had occurred from the Revolutionary War. After Washington left and quit, what happened was that we had the exact thing he warned against began. The political parties took shape. The Federalists, led by Hamilton and John Adams, wanted a strong government and urban society. The Democratic Republicans wanted a simple society, more freedom, led by Thomas Jefferson. They will argue and fight, and in the election of 1896, the Federalists will win, and John Adams will become our second president. In terms of review questions, things to think about, you need to know about the Constitution that we studied previously. The Constitution is the framework for our government. It provides law and order for our government. It organizes our government. It protects our freedoms with the Bill of Rights. And it's been successful as a living document, a document that can be adjusted by amendments for over 200 years now. The French and Indian War helped shape America because when the British won the war against the French and the Indians, which was caused because of a competition over land and resources between the British, French, and Indians, and hatred between the French and the British. The effects of that allowed the British to gain land, which will eventually become part of the United States of America, and the decline of the Native American and French influence in America is another effect of the French and Indian War. The American Revolution was caused by discontent by the colonists over taxation without representation and a divide between them and their home country of Britain. And the effects of it were the creation, of course, of the United States, a lot of land gained by the United States all the way to the Mississippi River, and the successful attempt of democracy that will spread around the world. Articles of Confederation was our first flawed government of the United States. It was too weak to be effective. It did not create a strong central government or any tax revenue to get anything done. Throughout the history of the colonists, there have been lots of conflict between the colonists and the Native Americans. The colonists attacked the Native Americans over and over again. They would, example would that be that in the first colonies at Jamestown, when they killed some of the Native American chiefs. It will be at Bacon's Rebellion a little bit later in that area. In general, the colonists are taking the Native American lands by force when they can. There were times of cooperation when Squanto helped the Native Americans. Pocahontas and John Rolfe got married, ushering some limited times of peace. But in general, Native American relations between the colonists were poor and will continue to be poor throughout American history as well. I hope this review is helpful. It's not everything that's on the quiz, but it's a good start and a good way to review for the quiz. So I hope it's helpful, and I hope it's helpful to anyone else that is trying to learn about George Washington's presidency, the basics as well.